Thanks for joining me today for this video. There are a few props that you'll need. A yoga block. If you don't have a block, you can use a towel that you can roll up to about the same thickness. You will need a yoga strap. If you don't have a yoga strap, you can use a belt or a resistance band, anything that you can tie. And you will also need a ball. So I am using a small yoga tune-up ball, but you could use a tennis ball, maybe a lacrosse ball that might be a little bit too hard, but something that is maybe like rubber or has a little bit of give, so it's not too hard. And so this particular practice is oriented towards older adults and anyone really who might have some limited mobility or concerned about movement in general. So we're just going to begin by coming into standing, or starting with a mountain pose, and you can have some chairs beside you or standing against the wall if you need some support. And we'll just start to feel into the bottom of the feet. Maybe starting to notice the soles of the feet against the floor. This is ideal if you can do this without shoes, maybe taking socks off so you're in bare feet. If you need to have shoes on, you'll feel your feet against the bottom of your shoes. Feeling particularly into the center of your heels, the base of the big toe, so the ball of your foot, and then the base of the baby toe. So like each foot is standing on a tripod, and I call this tripod feet. You can have your eyes opened or closed, whatever works the best for your balance. And we're just going to keep paying attention to the three parts of those feet. Feeling the heels, and the base of the big toes, and the base of the baby toes. And depending on your experience, you might feel more weight on the inside edges of the feet. You might feel more pressure on the outside edges of the feet. Maybe you feel like you're leaning more into your toes or more into your heels. Everyone's experience will be different because our bodies are all different. And you can take as much time as you need, holding on for support if you need to. And if you can stand, letting the arms relax. Now, if standing is not accessible for you, you can do the same thing in sitting. So you would come onto a stable surface, and then see if you can bring your ankles right underneath your knees. So it would be the same alignment if we were standing, and then feel the center of the heels, the base of the big toes, and the base of the baby toes. And just let your breath be natural. You don't need to do anything special with the breath. Next, we're going to take our ball, and you're going to bring it under one foot. We're just going to roll it around on the bottom of the foot. Now, ideally, I'd like you to try this standing if it's possible. You can do it sitting, of course. It's just showing you. But hold on to something. Hold on, have both hands on a table or on a chair where you can feel steady and supported. And you're just going to start to roll your ball along the sole of your feet. And it might feel a little bit sore, a little bit tense. So you control how much you press down. So you can keep it really gentle, or you can press a little bit harder, depending on what you feel like you need. So we're going to get the heel and the outside edge of the foot. And if the ball rolls away from you, just bring it back. Inside edge, in the middle. You can go across the ball of the foot, even under the toes. And And so the amount of time that you do this is going to depend on you, on how long it feels okay to stand. So usually I would say a minute or two at least, but it could always be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more. If you need to take a seat, you can do it sitting down. But in standing, even though we're holding on, we're still working on our balance. Right? So this is, if it's possible to stand, then I encourage you to explore this option. And then we can switch feet, so you're just going to roll it over and get it under the other foot. And the side might feel a little bit different. You might start to notice that there's imbalances side to side, whether it's your feet, or your hips, or your arms, or your back. Get the heel, inside edge of the foot, outside edge. And don't worry if your ball rolls away, just bring it back. That's why I like rubber balls are a little bit stickier than tennis balls. Tennis balls can kind of shoot away from you on the floor. But we just use what we have. If you don't have a ball, to start, you could take like a rolled up ball of socks, and you could try it with that. It might be more of a pressing down action than a rolling action. But we can get really creative in terms of what we use for props if we don't have a specific thing. So don't worry too much about that. Getting under the toes. So then when you're finished, just roll your ball out of the way. Then we're going to come back into standing like we did at the beginning, or sitting. And then feel the center of the heels, the base of the big toes and the base of the baby toes. And just notice what you notice. There might be more awareness in your feet. Maybe the pressure or sensation in your feet has changed. Maybe there's a different experience through your legs, or your hips, or your back. Or maybe even further up, maybe you feel different through your neck or your shoulders. Or it could be that you don't feel anything at all, and that is perfect too. All this is an experience or an exploration of what we're experiencing. And so we just pay attention little by little. And maybe over time you start to notice something different or something change, or maybe you don't. It doesn't mean that it's not working if we don't feel it. And then from here, I'm going to invite you to come sitting down if you're not sitting already. And so you can sit on a couch or a chair. And if you're in a chair that has a back, come part way forward so you're not leaning into the chair. And so you can bring your ankles directly in line under your knees. And then we can feel into the tripod of the feet again. And then just let your spine come up neutral. You don't have to, force yourself to sit upright, but if you notice that you're really slouchy and you can kind of come up a little bit higher, that's great. If not, don't worry. Another thing I like to focus on when we come to sitting, just to be a little bit more mindful and more intentional, is if we sit on our hands and give yourself a little wiggle, you can feel two bony protrusions in your bum. Okay, your bum bones or your sitting bones, as we call them in yoga. And so we'd like, if possible, for those to be on the surface of the chair that you're sitting on. And that brings our pelvis into a neutral position, which allows our spine to come up into its most vertical position. And that way we don't have to draw our shoulders back or force ourselves upright. If we can kind of get our pelvis in the right place, find those sitting bones, and have them grounded, then we're doing all right. All right. Now from here, we're going to explore a twist. Actually, let me turn myself a little bit so you can see me better. Sitting bones, feet on the floor. And this might feel really supportive and really grounding for you. So maybe just sitting like this for a few breaths or throughout the day might feel really nice. But what we're going to explore next is a twist. So I like to start by bringing my palms together and letting the thumbs kind of rest at the collarbones, at the notch of the collarbones, and the fingertips at the chin. And so we're going to explore a rotation where the ribs turn to one side. And so what the fingertips are allowing is keeping the nose in line with the middle. Sometimes what can happen when we twist with our head, and that means we're not moving through our ribs. So this is just a reminder to keep the head lined up so you can see it stays in line even as I twist. And it also reminds us not to twist through our shoulders. So I can keep my ribs still and move my shoulders. So that's not what we want for this movement. So we're just going to go nice and slow. We don't have to crank ourselves around. It should feel really gentle and smooth. And what you might also notice is my hips and my legs are not getting involved in the twist. So if I go too far, watch my legs. See how my hip has moved back and my legs have moved? I'll do that again. So now we've lost the twist up here and we're moving down here. So we're just going to come back and reset. And I want you to explore a range where the hips, so your pelvis, and the legs don't move. And it's just through the rib cage. So that might mean going smaller with your movement. So if you're going through your head or your legs, that just means that you've gone too far. Make sure you're still breathing softly. You can go back and forth a few times just so you can find the range that's appropriate for you. And to start, it might be small. And if you're experiencing pain, keep going smaller with your movement until the pain either doesn't increase or it doesn't arise. So if going to here, it hurts, come back, and then go a little bit smaller. Oh, it doesn't hurt here, so I'm going to stay here. And breathe. And you can come back to center and explore the other side. If you go too far, the legs might move, or the head might move. So we just try it again until you find the range that works the best for you. And then we can hold it and breathe. And it might feel different every time you do this movement. And if you're not completely sure, don't worry about it too much. Okay? Just explore. And you can do each side again. And so I'm holding it for maybe 5 breaths or so. If that feels like it's too much, then you do less. If it feels easy, then you can hold it for a little bit more. We don't need to overdo it either. Little bit by little bit. And as the body adapts to these movements and it starts to feel easier, then you can start to hold longer, or maybe the body just naturally goes into the twist a little bit further as things start to loosen up. So that's why there's no right or wrong. It's really just individual and exploratory. Can you be curious about your movement? All right. From the twisting, so I just did a lot of twisting. You don't have to do that much when you do it on your own. But we're going to go into a side bend. So we're going to start sitting the same way. Sitting bones grounded. So this is important that both sides of your bum stay on the chair. You let one arm hang, and the other hand can come to the side of your head. Now, if this is too much for your neck or your shoulders, you can bring your hand onto your shoulder, or just let it rest by your side. So you can try it and see what feels the best for you. And then we're going to gently bend the torso to one side. So the hand that's up, or the side that we're bending away from, is getting longer from the armpit all the way down to the waist. And you might not come this far. So let's try it again. As you go, if it feels like the hip is lifting up, oh, we've gone too far. Or if the head is tilting and the torso is not, then we come back and we only go as far as the head doesn't get involved. The head stays neutral. This is what it looks like if the arm is down. So it's kind of like this armpit is coming closer to this hip. And we're just going to be in a place where we can breathe. So just like the twisting, if it hurts or if pain increases, Then we just go a little bit smaller. We always want to be in a place where we can breathe. So if the breathing becomes strained, or if you're holding your breath, it could be a signal that you've just gone a little bit too far. If you go a little bit smaller with the movement, then you can see if anything changes for you. And then you can do the same thing on the other side, keeping the sitting bones grounded, breathing with ease. So something else that I want to mention, when we do the side bend, we want to imagine that there's a wall in front and a wall behind. So we're going purely side to side. Sometimes what can happen is when we side bend, we start to come forward. So we don't want this forward movement to start to happen. We also don't want this kind of movement. So we don't want the torso to twist, right? Either way. So if that does happen, if you notice that for yourself, just come back and then go a little bit smaller, only as far as your body doesn't come forward. I know this is a lot to think about, so just kind of pick one thing. Focus on the hips and the legs. And then once you feel good with that, then you can start to pay attention to what's happening up top. There are so many little signals and little things that can happen in our body that we don't necessarily have to pay attention to everything all at once. Just make sure you're breathing and that it feels good, right? Breathing and feeling good are the most important. So after you've done your side bend on both sides, if you want, you can try your twist again. And oftentimes my clients say that after doing a side bend, their twisting becomes easier. Things start to free up a little bit more. So you can see if that's the case for you. It might not be. And that's okay. And so after you've tried your twist both sides, we can just sit and breathe. So notice your breath. There may be a subtle shift or change in your breathing, or there may not be. Oftentimes my clients feel like they can breathe a little bit easier. The breath feels a little bit more flowy or smooth. And that might come with a little bit of practice as well. So I want to do a breathing practice with you, and this is called straw breathing. And typically we use a straw to exhale through. I don't have a straw right now, so we can do it without one. Or if you have a straw, you can use a straw. Now, some straws are really narrow, so a really skinny straw is going to restrict your breath more than, say, a straw with a wider hole. So that might be something to experiment with if you want to use a straw. See what feels the best for you, because we don't want to feel panicky or strained breathing through a straw. So maybe even starting without one, like we're going to do today, might be a good place to start. And all we do is let the inhale come naturally through the nose. And then when you exhale, purse your lips like you're breathing through a straw and breathe out through your mouth. And when the air is done, breathe in through your nose. And exhale through pursed lips. Two more. Let the shoulders stay relaxed. One more. And then breathe normally. Now, that exercise you felt a little bit lightheaded. You can maybe, instead of doing 4 rounds, maybe you do 1 or 2 to start. So just like movement, our breath adapts with practice. So you can take a little breather. Notice how you feel after doing it or while you're doing it. And we're going to try it again. This time we'll do 3. And I want you to notice what happens with your neck and your shoulders. Do they tense up? Do you feel really braced as you're breathing? And if you do, pause. Let that kind of settle out and then try it again. So we want to maintain as much ease and effortlessness in our breathing as we do in our movement. So starting from a place of relative ease, breathe in through the nose and then through pursed lips. And if you do feel a little bit lightheaded, maybe make your exhale through your lips a little bit shorter and see if that makes a difference for you as well. Let's try 2 more. And again. And then breathe normally. So there are different reasons why we can do this style of breathing. For some people, it might feel really relaxing and calming. For others, it helps with the mechanics of our breath and extending our exhales. And so when we can have a longer exhale, that actually allows us to get more oxygen in that we need without having to force the inhale. So overall, having better breathing can help with things like sleep, our energy levels, things like that. So you can explore that type of breathing. You can, pepper it throughout your day. You could do it in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. And you don't have to do a lot of rounds. Start with 1 or 2. If that feels easy, you could go up to 5 and build up to a minute or 2. So have fun exploring that one. I have one more exercise that's in 2 parts. So this is where we're going to use the strap and the block. If you don't have a strap and block handy, put the video on pause, go grab a towel or a belt, something that you can use that would be about equivalent. And then what we're going to do is come down to either, there's 2 options. If it's possible to come down to lying on the floor. If coming down onto the floor is not a possibility, you can lie on a couch or on a bed or a surface that's easier to get up and down from. If that just sounds like something that's not accessible for you, then we can skip this one and we can explore something different in another video. So I'm going to move myself so you can see me lying down, and then we will join again in a moment. Alright, so I'm lying on my dirty floor and we're going to keep the block and strap just beside us. We're going to come down to lie. And so as you lie down, let's just take a moment to settle. Feel the back of your head against the floor, the weight of your hips. Now I have my knees bent, so just like when we were sitting, feeling into the 3 points of the feet, the center of the heel, base of the big toe, base of the baby toe. Breathing softly. Next, we're going to take our hands, so the edge of the hand, like you're doing a little karate chop, we're going to bring that right into our hip crease. So if I were to bend my knee, I'd be kind of like crushing my hand. Right? I don't know if I can turn it sideways a little bit more. Right into the edge. And so what happens then, if I lift my foot off the floor, I can feel a ropey muscle pop up into my hand. And I can do the same thing on the other side. So right now, it kind of just feels soft and mushy. And then when I lift my leg, it's kind of like a ropey muscle that pops up. So these are our hip flexors. And so that's what's supposed to happen when we draw our knee towards our chest. There's muscles here that tighten up to draw the knee up. Next, so we're just setting a baseline so you can feel that. Next, we're going to take the block or your roll-up towel, and you're going to bring it between your legs. We're going to bring it as high up away from the knee, so it's not between the knees, so it's between the thighs. Now I'm just gently holding the block, and I'm going to bring my hands back into the hip creases again. So I can feel that they're relaxed. And then I'm going to use the inside of my legs to press into the block. So I'm squeezing the block, and then release. Squeeze, and release. And as you squeeze, notice what happens to the muscles underneath your hands, those hip flexors. Do they stay relaxed, or do they pop up? Now, if one muscle on one side or both sides pop up, use less pressure. So the reason they pop up is because we're doing a vertical movement, right? Knee towards chest. But when we squeeze the block, now we're doing a horizontal movement side to side. So those muscles ought not engage. So we want to train them to stay quiet. And this is going to help so much for balance, for leg strength, for back pain, for hip pain, all kinds of things. Because these are muscles that often get overused. And if we can find some ease with them, it's going to switch up our mechanics and how we experience and move through life. So this one is really, really key. So you're going to explore going softer and softer with your squeezing until both sides stay relaxed. You don't have to hold the squeeze. Just keep it gentle and make sure you're breathing. So if you're breath holding, just pause. Feel the breath coming in and out through the nose. And then try a few more. So we don't need to do a ton of these. Like 5 to 10 is really, really great. And then you can set the block off to the side. And if you want, you can check your hip flexors again. Lift one leg, feel it pop up, and then the other side. Then, while we give the legs a little rest, we're going to grab our strap, and we're going to bring it around behind the thighs. Oh, this is a really long strap. And we are going to, this is the one with the weird buckle, we are going to strap it around the mid-thigh. I don't know if this is going to work. So if you're using a belt or a scarf, you can kind of see. I totally made this the most awkward. Okay. So it doesn't have to be, it can be fairly snug. My knees are touching, or the starting point. And so it's about mid-thigh, fairly low down. And so just take a moment to settle, check in with your breath, and then see if you can get a sense of the strap on the outside of each leg. So this time, instead of squeezing in, we're going to press out. So we're going to keep the hands in the hip creases again. You can do a little check if you want to check. And then with the feet on the floor, now you're going to press the legs into the, they're going to move apart. And then release. Press apart, and then release. So the same concept as with the block. So if one hip flexor or both pop up, you feel that hardness underneath your hand, go a little bit softer. Now, sometimes we're not all made the same. And so if it feels like it's just chronically, it's just like persistently hard underneath your hands the whole time, and there's no change between relax and tense, that might be a good opportunity to reach out to me. There might be something else we can do. Or if when you lift your leg, it doesn't pop up at all, if the hip flexor's not turning on, there are other things we can do. And so that would be for another video or to work together one-on-one to kind of find out a little bit more about what's going on in your body. So as you're exploring the strap movement, again, 5 to 10 is a good place to start. You don't need to do 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. That would be overdoing it. But what you can do is do this several times throughout the day. You can do it in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. And then when you're finished, you can slide the strap off. Let's take a few breaths. And then when you're ready, take your time to come up to sitting. Or coming up to standing. So we just did some really key work with our hips. So be careful when you come up to standing. So we've kind of just reorganized our body, for lack of a better word. And sometimes what can happen is we might feel a little bit wobbly when you come up to standing. So hold on to something, have something nearby. And then you can come up to standing again into that standing pose or the mountain pose, feeling into the 3 points of the feet, the center of the heel, the base of the big toe, and base of the baby toe. And just notice how your body feels. The legs might feel, there might be a subtle change in the legs or the feet. Maybe the back or the sides or the arms feel different. I know I certainly feel a little bit taller, a little bit longer. And if you feel a little bit lightheaded or dizzy, just take a seat. And feel the 3 points of your feet on the floor. Find the sitting bones. And just breathe easy. Okay. So we did tripod feet in standing. We rolled the feet out with a block. And we did a twist. We did a side bend. And we did the block and strap lying down. So have fun exploring. Notice how you feel before, during, and after. And if you have any questions, reach out to me, Lindsay at lindsaykeefeyoga.ca. Have a great day.